Part 50. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 491. April is already the season when warm spring is approaching early summer. A thin and light spring sweater has replaced the winter clothes, giving it a somewhat elegant and out-of-this-world feeling. Activities such as flower viewing parties among major aristocratic families in the imperial capital have increased significantly, and the marriage of ladies of the right age has also been put on the agenda. On the morning of April 6, Nan 11 and Rong Yu appeared in the court hall together to accept the worship of the civil and military officials of the court. It has been more than a month since I last saw Her Majesty the Queen, who is confinement in the Deep Palace. Her facial features have become more gentle and calm, her skin is fair, and she is dressed in a noble and well-fitting dragon robe that makes her look very elegant. Her whole body exudes a completely different nobility from the past. It seems like after giving birth to the prince, she seemed to have undergone a radical change. While the courtiers paid their respects, they couldn't help but feel a little awe-inspiring in their hearts. The regent who accompanied her was still wearing the robe of the regent, with a cold appearance, and a graceful look on his handsome features, which made people intimidated. The courtiers paid homage sincerely and could not help but feel a sense of surrender and awe in their hearts. "My lords, please be safe." Nan 11's voice was light, clearly a gentle and calm voice, but it made people hear a bit of majesty that they dared not offend. "From now on, I will listen to the government together with the regent, and the regent's opinions will be heard. That's my opinion. If you have something to do, it doesn't matter. Long live my emperor, long live, long live. The regent is 1,000 years old, 1,000 years old, 1,000 years old." The thunderous sound of worship echoed endlessly, shocking the hearts of the people. This was the beginning of a dynasty in which the two emperors coexisted. On the 9th of April, the 9-day spring festival officially ended. It would take some time for the examiners to mark the papers. Xiejin, who was almost suffocated after 9 days of confinement, returned to Xie's mansion with a visibly haggard look on his face. Xie felt extremely distressed and touched his face. "My dear, I've lost weight." Xiejin said a few words of comfort and then went back to Jinyuan to rest. He slept for a full day and night. Xie ordered no one to disturb her. When Xiejin woke up the next day, the maids from Jinyuan hurriedly helped the young master wash himself and put on a light brocade robe. The black jade belt outlined his slim waist, making the young master look like jade. He was handsome, and his figure was as slender and straight as a green bamboo. Outstanding nobility. Xie ordered someone to prepare a large table of good wine and food, and quickly fed her son. Xiejin was not polite and sat down to enjoy the meal. However, before taking a few bites, a servant reported to General Xianyuan to see him. In fact, the title General Xianyuan was a bit unfamiliar to him. After all, Xiejin always liked to call people Yao Yao, and outsiders often called him Prince Yao, so he was stunned for a moment before he realized that it was Xianyuan Yao who was asking for an audience. With a smile on his lips, he said, "Please come in quickly." The butler was about to take the order and leave. He quickly said, "From now on, when the young prince comes to ask for it, he will be released directly without notification." "Yes. Jinur, you have a good relationship with this young prince." Madame Xie sat beside him and served him dishes distressedly. "Aren't you very tired these 2 days? It's really hard on you." Xiejin held his chin and looked at her. "Mom, is Dad at home?" Xie was stunned and turned to look outside. "Why are you asking your father? He should have just gone to court at this moment." "I have something to tell my father." Xiejin sighed. "Let him be mentally prepared." Xie was surprised. "What's wrong? Didn't you perform well in the examination room?" Xiejin shook his head. "It's okay even if you don't perform well. There will be opportunities in the future." Xie comforted him. "With your father here, you will always get what you want." The corner of Siejin's mouth twitched. Mom, you look down on your son too much. I'm like me, and I still need my father's help. Mrs. looked at him. Don't show off, even if you really don't do well in the exam, my mother won't laugh at you. Ajin didn't do well in the exam. Xian Yuanyao walked in from outside the door and caught a glimpse of Mrs. sitting beside him. He hesitated for a moment and said, "This is." Siejin said, "My mother." Xian Yuanyao bowed and saluted, "My nephew Xian Yuanyao, I have met and Xie." "Good boy, no need to be polite." Madame Xie stood up and looked Xian Yuanyao up and down, her face beaming with joy. "You're so good looking, Prince Yao hasn't gotten married yet." Xian Yuanyao looked confused. "Not yet. Is there an engagement?" "Neither. Would you like me to introduce you to one?" "Ah. I know all the girls from the imperial capital's aristocratic families, and I will definitely find the best one for you." Mother Siejin said calmly, "Yao Yao is still young and has no plans to get married for the time being." "That's right." Xian Yuanyao nodded quickly, "Thank you madam for your kindness, my nephew has no plans to get married yet." Mrs's face was full of regret, her eyes still lingering on him. "It's a pity that I don't have a daughter, otherwise I would make Yao Yao my son-in-law." Xian Yuanyao thought of the words teased by Siejin every time before, and he spoke out of nowhere, "If madam is willing to marry her son to my nephew will accept it." After he finished speaking, he realized what he had said, and immediately wanted to bite off his tongue, especially when he saw Siejin's monster-like face and the unbeatable smile on his lips. He wanted to punch him flat. "I'm joking." He quickly tried to save him, fearing that Madame Xie would think there was something wrong with his mind. "Madam, please don't take it seriously." Mrs. looked at him with a strange expression. Xian Yuanyao was so shocked that he raised his hands and swore, "My nephew really doesn't mean that." Mrs. said, "Actually, it doesn't matter if you have that intention." "Ah." Xian Yuanyao was stunned again. Is he abnormal, or is Mrs. abnormal? "Have you eaten Yao Yao?" Mrs. invited enthusiastically, "Since you are here, please sit down and eat with Jin'er." Xian Yuanyao groaned, his expression still a bit unresponsive. "Okay, I won't disturb you young people here." Mrs. ordered everyone to wait on her, then turned and walked out. Xian Yuanyao looked at Siejin with a strange expression. "What are you looking at?" Siejin smiled lightly, "Sit down and eat together." Xian Yuanyao sat down, coughed slightly, and asked calmly, "How did you do in the exam?" "How can I do well in the exam if Yao Yao doesn't agree to marry me?" Siejin sighed, with a hint of melancholy. "I just hope that I can successfully enter the palace exam, and I don't dare to have any illusions about anything else." Xian Yuanyao's face turned green. "How long have you been talking nonsense? Can you be more serious?" "Yao Yao, why do you always think I'm talking nonsense?" Siejin lowered his head to eat, his movements elegant and noble. "What if I am serious?" Xian Yuanyao was startled and looked at his expression carefully. "Siejin." Siejin raised his eyes, "You don't want to eat?" Xian Yuanyao was so upset by what he said, how could he still eat? "Okay." Siejin smiled lightly, "Just think I'm talking nonsense and eat first." Xian Yuanyao is like a lump in the throat. Window. Taboola equals window. Taboola. Taboola.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, Taboola below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 492. He couldn't help but curse in his heart that Siejin, an old fox who had practiced for thousands of years, was so cunning in making his heart flutter while pretending to be innocent. Xian Yuanyao said nothing with a sullen face. "Are you angry?" Siejin raised his lips, and a pair of red phoenix eyes revealed a charming arc. "Yao Yao is a military general with a broad mind and an open mind. Don't get angry easily like your daughter. Do you still want me to coax you? Xian Yuanyao glared at him. I stayed in the dormitory for 9 days. I was tired and sleepy. I started to sleep when I came back yesterday and slept for a whole day and night recovering. Xian Yuanyao felt guilty for a moment after what he said. What does it have to do with me that you are sleepy and tired? I didn't ask you to take the exam for your fame. Will you give it to me if you win the first prize in the future? I can give it to you, Xiejin said with a smile. As long as Yao Yao wants it, why not give it to you? Get lost, Xian Yuanyao said fiercely. I'm not afraid that the Lord will skin you. If it's for you, I'd be willing to skin him. Xian Yuanyao felt a surge of blood rushing to his head. He didn't know whether it was shame or anger. He couldn't help but stand up. If you keep talking nonsense, I will leave. Xiejin apologized and said, I won't talk anymore. You sit down. Xian Yuanyao looked at him expressionlessly. It's true, Xiejin swore sincerely, I swear to God. Xian Yuanyao looked at his peach-like face, and probably felt that he was making a fuss out of a molehill. A grown man who got angry frequently would seem too petty, but he didn't know when this monster's habit of always talking nonsense would change. Xian Yuanyao thought like this, straightened his expression, and sat back again. Did you come here specifically to see me? Xian Yuanyao denied, no. Xiejin curled his lips and smiled, so what if you admit it? Xian Yuanyao frowned. Okay, Xiejin raised his hands in surrender, let's eat. My mother thought I was reincarnated as a starved ghost, so she prepared so much, so I won't let it go to waste. Xian Yuanyao was so tortured by his words that he couldn't think of eating. Xiejin ignored him and concentrated on eating. Xian Yuanyao sat and looked at it for a moment, then said calmly, I want to eat too. Xiejin raised his eyes and looked at him, eat, you can eat whatever you want. Just treat it like your own home. You're welcome. Xian Yuanyao was really not polite to him, so he took the chopsticks and started eating. Aren't you afraid that I'll poison you? Xiejin said quietly. Xian Yuanyao paused and looked at him as if he was crazy. What good will poisoning me do to you? Xiejin chuckled, I didn't get what I asked for, so I killed him painfully. Xian Yuanyao took a deep breath and couldn't help but turn blue again. Yao Yao should calm down, Xiejin said calmly, I heard that you have experienced training with the Lord. Xian Yuanyao was shocked. Then you should know what the Lord's most basic requirements for generals are. Xiejin smiled lightly, if you lack concentration and are prone to anger, what kind of punishment should you get? Xian Yuanyao's blood was stagnated in his lungs, unable to go up or come down. He could only hold back his handsome face and blush. He couldn't help but think of the incident in the palace a few days ago when Su Shangshu was so angry that he lost control. His mood has indeed been a little unstable recently. Xian Yuanyao reflected on himself in his heart, is he really not accustomed to the climate in the imperial city? No. All the civil servants in the court were at odds with him. Xian Yuanyao decided that from today on, he would just stay in the military camp. Unless summoned by the queen and the regent, he promised not to come out and deal with these people who were not in harmony with him. Originally, he heard that the literary examination was very hard, so he thought that as a friend, he should show some concern, but he didn't expect that Xiejin would always make fun of him. He closed his eyes and tried to control his emotions, then opened his eyes and his expression returned to calm. Then he stopped paying attention to a certain annoying guy, lowered his head to eat, and ignored Xiejin's teasing eyes that stayed on him, finishing all the delicious dishes in front of him like a wind. After filling his stomach, he wiped his mouth slowly and said calmly, you can take it easy. I, the general, have something else to do, so I'll take my leave now. After saying that, he really got up and left without hesitation. Xiejin sighed, Xian Yuanyao just pretended not to hear and left without looking back. Xiejin looked at the destroyed dishes on the table speechlessly. Is this guy here to eat? After leaving the Xie family, Xian Yuanyao did not enter the palace, but rode out of the city and galloped towards the military camp. The howling wind blew against his cheeks, slowly calming down the suppressed blood in his heart. He recalled Xiejin's expression when he spoke just now, and finally an uneasy premonition slowly fermented in his heart. Is Xiejin serious? The joke was repeated over and over again, and it became a habit after 3 times, but Xian Yuanyao had made it clear many times that he did not want to make such a joke again, and the Lord had also warned them, so why did Xiejin still not listen? Xian Yuanyao couldn't help but think of the prophecy about Xiejin again, and felt depressed for a while. To be honest, if they were brothers or friends, he would be more than happy to be close to Xiejin, and he would not hesitate to put in a lot of trouble. But other relationships? Xian Yuanyao shook his head. It was impossible. He really regretted that he had been so mean-mouthed and made all these random jokes to him, and now he was in a difficult situation. Forget it, try to stay away from it in the future. Wait until he has rested his thoughts. Xiejin, who was still at home at this time, didn't know that Xian Yuanyao had been on guard after hearing his words today. As a military general, Xian Yuanyao was just not good at scheming with others in the court, but it didn't mean that he was really slow or stupid. Military tactics on the battlefield also require the use of brains. If he was not careful enough, how could Rong Yu give him an elite army to build? But when Xiejin noticed Xian Yuanyao's alienation, he had completely seen his heart, so that he had to make a difficult decision in the end. The process of marking the papers was very complicated. During the days waiting for the announcement of the results, he did nothing. Except for occasionally going to the palace to meet the emperor, the rest of the time was spent drinking, visiting brothels, and leisurely getting information from those teenagers. Time passed by the end of April, and it was finally time to announce the results. This spring exam was at the level of the imperial examination. The first place was Xiejin, and the second and third places were Xian Yuanchen from the Prince of Wei's mansion and Xian Yuanhua from the Prince of Jing's mansion. The 2 illegitimate sons of the Xian Yuan royal family took the second and third places, which was beyond many people's expectations. In addition to bringing glory to the royal family, it also made some people wonder if there was something fishy going on. And the first place went to Xiejin, the son of Prime Minister Xie. Are the legitimate sons of the Xie family really that powerful? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 493. The palace examination on the 6th day of May is open-ended. Due to the special nature of the Spring Festival and the Queen's first imperial examination after ascending the throne, in order to convince all the students in the imperial capital, Her Majesty held the imperial examination in the square of the main hall. All students who participate in the examination, whether successful or unsuccessful, can participate and witness the talents and knowledge of the successful students on the spot. If there are those who cheat in the general examination, their true abilities will be revealed in the palace examination. Knowledge can be hidden from one person, but not from everyone. Several cases were lined up in the square, and the 4 treasures of the study were prepared by the palace staff. All the successful candidates came empty-handed and entered the palace gate to undergo a full-body inspection to make sure they did not bring any tools of fraud. Of course, in full view of the public, Her Majesty the Queen and the Regent. In the presence of the king and the civil and military officials of the entire dynasty, those who dare to cheat may be really bold. Candidates enter and take their seats, and blank papers are distributed one by one. The Minister of Rights took out a lottery box and asked the students present to draw lots and write an essay based on the lottery they drew. In order to be more fair, after the paper was completed, the Queen and the Regent came up with the topic in court. The students answered and the top 3 were selected under the supervision of everyone. This palace examination lasted for half a day. The students who failed the exam were watching. They saw how humble and low-key the concubine of Prince Wei was. He answered questions fluently in front of the palace, showing his amazing talent. They also saw how gentle yet sharp his articles were. They saw the dazzling light of the rebellious heir of the Xie family, the arrogance and confidence revealed in his neither humble nor arrogant manner when answering questions, and the sharp and meticulous views in the articles on governing the country, which made people feel amazed and shocked after hearing it. They also saw the profound knowledge hidden under the gentle and humble appearance of the gentle and jade-like Prince Hua of Prince Zheng. The students' articles were read one by one. The strength of the three people who were selected as the number 1, 2nd and 3rd overall winner was obvious to all. They lived up to their names and convinced everyone present. This palace examination is enough to be remembered in the annals of history and passed down to future generations. Those who failed to get the top 3 regentry were also assigned positions and were assigned to various ministries to gain experience from the bottom. Xie Jin, who won the top spot, was granted the title of 5th rank imperial scholar to participate in politics. He could freely enter and leave the imperial study and discuss politics with the queen and regent. Xianyuan Hua was granted the title of 7th rank imperial academy editor and was responsible for writing history books, drafting edicts and other matters. Xianyuan Chen was still able to accompany the regent and was granted the title of 7th grade emperor. Although his official position was small and his power was not great, it was a position close to the center of power. If he performed well in the future, he would be promoted sooner or later. The imperial favorite officially entered the official position and entered the court. Although Xianyuan Yao, who was staying in the military camp, had never entered the palace, he couldn't control his curiosity and quietly inquired about the results of the palace examination. When he learned that Xie Jin won the first prize, he subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief, and then cursed viciously in his heart. He just said bastard and knew how to trick him, then returned to the military camp and continued to train with the plan, no longer caring about the wind and rain outside. He didn't even watch the excitement of the champion parade, as if he really wanted to draw a clear line with that guy. May passed with great joy. The weather is getting hotter and hotter. From the end of June to mid-July, it is as hot as an oven outside. Only a few basins of ice cubes placed in the Taisho Palace provide the slightest bit of coolness. However, in front of the desk, there were still folded papers being thrown to the ground one by one. Rong Yu looked as if someone owed him 8 million taels of silver and hadn't paid back. He could only see Nan 11, who was leaning on the soft couch opposite, raising the corners of her lips. Eyes full of smiles. "What's the matter, Prince Regent?" she said softly. "Who else has made you angry at all costs?" Rong Yu paused while flipping through the book and shouted, "Qing Yang." Hearing the unpleasant tone of his master, Qing Yang became nervous and quickly turned around and entered the hall. "Master. Let Xianyuan Chen come over." "Yes." Not long after, Xianyuan Chen, who was staying in the imperial study room to review the files with Xie Jin, came to see him. He was dressed in a 7th grade official uniform, which made the young man calm and rigorous. After entering the palace, he was about to salute when he heard the cold voice of the regent, "Move these papers to the imperial study and let Xie Jin screen them." Xianyuan Chen responded respectfully. "I have picked out all the nonsense. If I see something like this in the future, neither you nor Xie Jin will be spared lightly by this king." Xianyuan Chen's face changed slightly, and he lowered his head uneasily and responded, "Yes." With a smile on her lips, Nan 11 watched without saying a word as Xianyuan Chen lowered his head to sort out the memorials on the case, and Zhou Zheng did not forget the etiquette before leaving. "Sure enough, the weather is so dry that even ice cubes can't suppress your anger," she said softly. "Isn't there another minister who will give me a trick asking me to choose the emperor's husband?" Except for this incident, nothing seemed to touch his emotions so much. Rong Yu calmed down the long-lost and familiar murderous aura in his chest. After a long time, he calmed down his eyebrows and slowly raised his eyes to look at Nan 11. Someone must unite to make a deal, otherwise it would be impossible for so many people to bring up old things together. Nan 11 smiled lightly, check it out and find out how to treat it. Rongyu was silent for a moment, then stood up and walked to her. Nan 11 raised her hand and hooked at him. Rongyu lowered his head, and a soft touch soon came to his lips, instantly calming all the anger in his heart. Rongyu put his arms around Nan 11's slender waist. 11er. It's evening now. Nan 11 smiled. What does the regent want to do? Go to bed. I haven't gone to bed yet. Your Majesty, you can go to bed now, Rongyu whispered. I will serve you on the bed. No, a king cannot indulge in beauty. You can indulge in male beauty. Rongyu picked her up from the couch and went to the bathing pool in the back hall. Your husband will help 11er take a bath. Nan 11 snuggled in his strong arms, smelling his scent that made her more and more fascinated, sighed, and let him go. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 494. After a night of lovemaking, Rongyu held Nan 11's hair, his eyes and eyebrows full of satisfaction. 11er, let's go back to Dejo. Rongyu looked at Nan 11 with a burning gaze. His expression was soft, and his voice was somewhat negotiating. How have you considered it? Nan 11 said lazily, what are you considering? Come back with me. Nan 11 was a little worried. What about Hauer? Let my mother-in-law take care of him. Rongyu obviously didn't think this was a problem. While we are away, my mother-in-law can move to Dezheng Palace, and Yinchuang and Yinyu can stay. I will arrange everything very carefully, and there will be no mistakes. What about government affairs? There are prime ministers. Yeah, Prime Minister Liu and Prince Jing. Rongyu's tone was calm, and he was obviously well prepared. Xiejing can assist, and there is Xianyu and Chen in the imperial study. The group of young ministers who have been promoted recently are in the training period. They will do their best and will not drag their feet. Nan 11 couldn't help but chuckle. You are really well prepared. Rongyu couldn't help but get more and more excited when he heard her words. Soft, 11er. Rongyu, pay attention to maintaining your image as the regent. Nan 11 raised her eyebrows and looked at him. Why are you like a child? Rongyu was silent. When have I ever had an image in front of you? What do you mean? Blame me? No, Rongyu was very sensible. It's because my husband loves you too much, and I always lose control in front of you. Nan 11 turned over and lay on the bed. Rub me. Rongyu smiled softly. Yes, you command. As he said that, he sat up from the bed, put his slender fingers on the side of her neck, and carefully massaged her from the shoulders and neck. Knowing that her skin was delicate, he used a lot less force, and only massaged Nan 11 comfortably and squinted her eyes. My husband is proficient in everything, an almighty king. Thanks to your Majesty's love, I will do my best and dare not slack off. Rongyu's lips curled up, and he smiled particularly happily. I just hope 11er will cherish me more. Nan 11 buried her face in the pillow, pursed her lips and suppressed her smile. 11er is very happy. Nan 11 nodded gently, sitting on the picturesque landscape, with a beautiful husband serving her. She should be happy. Life is so perfect, what reason is there to be unhappy? Rongyu was obviously doing the job of serving people, but when she heard her say this, she felt that her heart was full of throbbing and fulfillment, and she couldn't help leaning down and kissing her cheek. As she kissed, the hand that was originally massaging began to become restless and began to move to places where it shouldn't go. The temperature in the air rose accordingly. Rongyu, what are you doing? 11er. Rongyu's voice was low and hoarse, revealing some unspeakable meaning. Well, Rongyu. I'm here. A soft voice sounded. 11er, I'm here. I've always been here. As long as you are there, I will never leave, and will always protect my love until the sea dries up and the mountains and rivers are forever silent. The candle light flickered, and the atmosphere gradually became charming until it was out of control. The dragon tents fell down layer by layer, covering the faint spring scenery on the bed, and only the low, intriguing ambiguous voices echoed continuously. After half a night, under the temptation of Rong Yu's soft affection and beauty, Nan 11 finally agreed to go to Dezhou. Rong Yu was satisfied and set the date in September. Last autumn, he came to Dongling from Dezhou, and this autumn, he went out in a neither cold nor hot climate, taking into account the comfort of his beloved girl's trip. Now there are still 3 months to September, and government affairs need to be arranged more quickly. After the palace examination, the new nobles entered the court, and the atmosphere in the court was completely new. Xiejin, the favorite minister in front of the emperor, became visibly busy. He no longer lingered in the flowers all day, but went to court in a disciplined manner, followed the regent, and discussed politics in front of the emperor. The Black Obsidian Army under the command of the young General Xian Yuanyao has been reorganized and officially put into intense and uninterrupted rigorous training. In a few months, in addition to the troops that originally belonged to Xian Yuanyao, even Rong Yu's Black Armor Army has surrendered to him and is willing to be driven. Of course, this is also Rong Yu's order. Otherwise, it would be like a fantasy to want the Black Armor Army, which is as arrogant as an eagle, to surrender to other generals. However, Xian Yuanyao does have real skills. No matter how he jokes easily on weekdays, or how he gets along with the soldiers in the army like brothers, once he starts training, he instantly turns into a cold-faced and ruthless Yama, completely moving everything he learned from his master's training to the Black Obsidian Army, making people think he is the second Rong Yu. However, in the past few months, he has really never left the barracks once. Even if Xiejin is calm and composed, he can't help but start to mutter in his heart, won't he really scare this guy so much that he dare not come to see him? Thinking of this, Xiejin couldn't help but sigh. The playboy of the Xie family, who had always been a flower lover and had seen countless beauties, seemed to have finally experienced the taste of lovesickness this time. However, what made him so worried was not the delicate and soft girl, but a man who looked handsome and noble but was very hard. I don't know if God was teasing him deliberately, or punishing him for his past romantic love. Xiejin was thinking about what kind of reason to come up with to force the guy hiding in the tortoise shell out, and he heard the news that Rong Yu decided to return to Dezhou, and he was immediately refreshed. Well, he can wait a little longer. In mid-June, the lake was full of lotus flowers in full bloom. Her Majesty the Queen held a flower appreciation banquet in the palace, and invited noble ladies from aristocratic families into the palace to enjoy the lotus flowers with the Queen. This time the Empress ascended the throne. There were no concubines or queens in the harem. The elderly Empress Dowager and concubines stayed in the palace to accompany the old Empress and take care of themselves. Some concubines also moved out of the palace to follow their sons who had titles. Living together, there was no one who always acted like he was in front of the Empress and the regent. Therefore, the palace has not held activities such as flower viewing banquets for a long time. This time the Queen took the initiative to invite the noble ladies into the palace. It was a rare opportunity for them to show their faces. Although it was impossible for them to enter the palace and become concubines, if they could gain His Majesty's favor, it would not hurt either themselves or the family. Harm. After all, in these days, they already knew that the reason why the concubine of the Wei Palace was able to obtain the grace of the Holy One and even have the opportunity to attend the spring festival was because Xian Yuanjia knelt down and begged for the holy grace at the palace banquet, and the Queen learned about Xian Yuanchen's situation. They also know that although Chu Hong'ai, the general who protects the country, is powerful, she is able to obtain the favor of the Holy Emperor in the current peaceful and prosperous era only because she has more opportunities to show her face in front of His Majesty and has gained His Majesty's favor time and time again. Therefore, it can be seen how important it is to show up in front of His Majesty and be good at being a good person. If they can be favored by His Majesty, they may be favored by the god of destiny at some time and receive his favor. Therefore, on this day, all the noble ladies put a lot of thought into dressing up, not to the same standards as when choosing a concubine, but to dress up as elegantly as possible to leave a low-key and elegant impression on His Majesty, and must not overwhelm the appearance. His Majesty's limelight. Daughters who have grown up in boudoirs still have a little bit of cautiousness, so it is different from the style of selecting concubines in previous drafts. As soon as they walked into the Lotus Garden this time, Nan 11 saw all the pink and white, pearl white and jade white. The skirts in fruit green or light blue or light purple are elegant and elegant, with no trace of bright colors. Her footsteps paused subconsciously. Nan 11 turned around and asked, "Elegant skirts are popular in the imperial capital this year." Although Yunyu is well versed in gossip, how can she know what these ladies are thinking? Hearing this, he shook his head. "My subordinates don't know what's going on. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered." Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 495. Nan 11 turned her gaze back, silently looking at the girls in the flower hall in the center of the lake, and suddenly smiled lightly. "I probably know what's going on." After saying this, she walked over. The ladies from the major aristocratic families in the imperial capital who are of the same age and can be invited by the queen, come and go with nothing more than these familiar faces, including a few that they have never seen before, and they will get to know each other soon after meeting. Nan 11 walked towards the center of the lake. I heard a shout of "Her Majesty the Queen has arrived" from afar. A dozen noble ladies in the flower hall stood up in unison, knelt down and saluted respectfully. "My dearest lady, I see Her Majesty the Queen." "Long live Her Majesty! Long live Her Majesty!" Nan 11 walked onto the pontoon, wearing a bright and moving ice blue dress. The hem of the skirt was light and elegant. As she walked lightly, it shed a flowing luster under the sunlight. After being raised in the palace for so many days, it has been more than half a year since she ascended to the throne. The gentle and peaceful eyebrows in the past have become a bit colder and majestic, especially when she leaves the Taisho Palace and appears in front of people as the Empress. The harmony is more intense. However, when walking into the flower hall, Nan 11 was keenly aware that something was wrong with the atmosphere in the hall. Her eyes quietly passed over the faces of the ladies. Her eyebrows were thoughtful. Ping Shen, she smiled faintly. Her tone was calm and leisurely, with a hint of joking. "I have been a little bored in the palace these 2 days, so I called you all into the palace to enjoy the flowers in such a hot weather. Will you all? Don't you think I don't understand how to show love to women?" As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere in the flower hall suddenly became relaxed. Xian Yuanxia, who has appeared frequently in the past 2 days, has become familiar with Nan 11. Hearing this, he smiled and said, "Your Majesty's invitation is an honor for the ministers. We hope that Your Majesty will not show mercy to us and invite us to sit here from time to time." She knew very well that Nan 11 had a gentle temper and was not strict in terms of speech etiquette. As long as it did not violate the bottom line of the law, she was extremely tolerant, so she dared to joke. Of course, you can't be too presumptuous when joking, and you still maintain the sense of propriety that a court lady should have. Nan 11 walked to the main seat and sat down, and motioned for the girls to take their seats. The flower hall is located in the middle of Lianhu Lake, with wind coming from all directions. The air is filled with moisture and coolness, which is refreshing and comfortable. Today, except for the 2 royal ladies, Xian Yuanxia and Xian Yuandan, the others are all real noble ladies from aristocratic families. How expensive are they? The status is second only to the princess and princess. The one on the left is led by Xian Yuandan, the young princess of Prince Huai's mansion, followed by Xian Yuanxia. The first seat on the left is Su Zhenzhen, the eldest daughter of the Su family. I saw her at the Plum Blossom Appreciation Party just after Nan 11 sealed the throne, but we didn't interact much. She was wearing a pear flower today. The white dress looks very elegant. Sitting next to Su Zhenzhen is a beautiful and gentle girl with outstanding appearance and elegant demeanor. She looks like a real lady, with a temperament influenced by playing, chess, calligraphy and painting in her eyes. Nan 11 has never seen her, but she can guess her identity. Because the list presented by Aunt Sue was reviewed by her, and after excluding these familiar faces, she came to the conclusion that this woman was Lu Fangfei, the legitimate daughter of Prime Minister Lu's family. Nan 11's eyes fell on her face and she smiled faintly. "Miss Lu." Lu Fangfei was slightly stunned. She didn't expect the queen to notice her first. She quickly stood up and curtsied calmly and humbly, "Your Majesty. I have often seen Prime Minister Lu in the palace, but today this is the first time I met Miss Lu." Nan 11 looked at her with a smile. She is beautiful and elegant, and she is worthy of being Prime Minister Lu's daughter. Lu Fangfei was surprised in her heart by Nan 11's evaluation of her. She was silent for a moment, then a faint smile escaped from her lips, and she knelt down to thank her. "Your Majesty praises you so much, I am ashamed that I can't live up to it." "Miss Lu, please sit down." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Lu Fangfei sat down. Sitting next to Lu Fangfei is Mo Lian, the legitimate daughter of the Mo family. She is wearing an elegant aqua dress embroidered with lotus flowers. The skirt and cuffs are embroidered with complex lotus flowers, which is very unique. Chu Hongii of the Chu family has left the palace and has not entered the palace today. She has been staying in the palace to raise her baby in the days when she is about to give birth. There are no legitimate daughters in the Xie family, and several concubines have been out of the palace for many years. Therefore, there are no daughters from the Xie family and the Chu family at the banquet today. The palace maid presented iced sour plum juice, palace refreshments, and several kinds of refreshing iced fruits. Don't be nervous, everyone. There is nothing else to do today. I just want to drink tea, eat some fruit, and look at the scenery, Nan 11 said in a gentle tone, and talk to me. Everyone lowered their eyes at the same time and said respectfully, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Jia Nan 11's eyes turned slightly. "How has your sister-in-law been doing these past few days?" "Very good," Xian Yuanjia replied respectfully. "My sister-in-law is about to give birth. My mother has found an experienced nurse and a wet nurse. I have nothing to do these days. I will follow my mother at home. I have a few small clothes and shoes to wear after the baby is born." Nan 11 smiled and said, "It's good to have a sister-in-law who is handy. Hongyi can save a lot of trouble." "Yes, General Chu is born with the talent to be a military general." Mo Lian chuckled. "I heard that before leaving the cabinet, Mrs. Chu also spent a few days teaching female workers. General Chu really couldn't learn, so Mrs. Chu had to give up." Xian Yuanjia nodded. "Sister-in-law is really not good at female workers, but my eldest brother likes my sister-in-law to be heroic and heroic. If she sits in the room embroidering all day long, eldest brother will find it boring. Prince Chi is beautiful and gentle, and General Chu is a heroine. They are a perfect match for each other." Lu Fangfei smiled gently. "Such a relationship is quite enviable. Most women's marriages are arranged by their parents and matchmakers. How many of them are lucky enough to find someone who truly loves them and stay with them for the rest of their lives? Chu Hongyi's temperament is not accepted by men in the current system, but she is well cared for and doted on by a man like Qi Shizi. How can she not be envied?" "It is indeed enviable." Mo Lian smiled. "Does Miss Lu have a favorite lover?" "This question is private for girls." Mo Lian asked it directly in front of so many people. Although it was just a casual chat, it was obviously not appropriate. Lu Fangfei was silent for a moment, and smiled faintly. "I don't know how to answer the question asked by Miss Mo." Yes, no, Mo Lian chuckled. "Why don't you know how to answer?" Lu Fangfei took a sip of the teacup and did not answer. Nan 11 now vaguely understood what was going on when she came in. A trace of deep thought flashed across her brows. She smiled faintly and said, "If I know correctly, all the girls here today have reached the age of marriage. Do you have any ideas about marriage?" As soon as these words came out, the topic instantly changed from a single question to a discussion among the public, and the private matter also became more relaxed. Xianyuanjia knew Nan 11, and heard the words humbly said, "My daughter's marriage should be decided by my mother, and I dare not have any ideas myself." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 496. It's okay if you have ideas. Nan 11 picked up a piece of iced yellow peach with a bamboo skewer and put it into her mouth, tasting the sweet melon fruit elegantly. I fell in love with the regent before I returned to Dongling. De Zhou's father tried his best to objection, but it is useless to object. Firstly, no one dares to violate the high authority of the regent, and secondly, I feel that my own happiness is the most important. As soon as these words came out, all the ladies raised their heads. Her Majesty the Queen lived in Dazhu before returning to Dongling. This is something they all know. However, what kind of status she has in Dazhu, the ladies have no way of knowing. At this time, they heard her take the initiative to talk about falling in love with the regent. For a moment, they couldn't hide their curiosity. They all looked attentively and listened carefully. Nan 11 couldn't help but laugh when she saw this. I'm not encouraging you to blindly pursue so-called love. If you are not sure whether you like someone, or whether you really like this person to the extent that you have to stay with him for the rest of your life, then just don't make impulsive decisions for so-called love. Think twice before you act. Nan 11 is about the same age as them, but there is a difference in status. At first, noble ladies are a little constrained by their status. However, most women in the world like to listen to love stories, especially ladies who have grown up in boudoirs and are deeply bound by etiquette. In fact, deep down, I really yearn for pure love. So at this time, Her Majesty the Queen's words really spoke to their hearts, instantly shortening the distance between the monarch and his ministers. Lu Fangfei couldn't help but be curious. Then if father disagrees, isn't your Majesty worried about the gossip? I'm relatively lucky. The regent was so powerful in the great Zhou dynasty that no one dared to be rude to me in front of him. Nan 11 smiled. Although some people are indeed embarrassed and ridiculed in private, in my opinion most of them are just out of jealousy or injustice. There is nothing to worry about. The soldiers will block it, and the water will cover it. Lu Fangfei's eyes showed longing. The relationship between His Majesty and the regent is really enviable. I have always felt that every girl with a beautiful and kind heart should have her own happiness. Nan 11 smiled lightly. Compared to family marriages for profit, I appreciate women who dare to pursue their own happiness more. After the words fell, the hall fell silent. While the girls were silent, their expressions were slightly condensed, and they couldn't help but think about the profound meaning of Her Majesty the Queen's words. Does she really think so, or is she using this reason to deliberately beat them and make them stop thinking about powerful marriages? The reason why Chu Hongii won the favor was because she had the courage to pursue her love? However, how does your Majesty know that although a noble girl from a noble family was born into a wealthy family and grew up in a splendid village, she was born with rich clothes and a noble status, which is enviable, but there are too many restrictions on etiquette and rules, and her parents ordered her to be a matchmaker. Words are rules and family interests are destiny. How easy is it for them to have a happy marriage? Your Majesty Xianyuanjia frowned and couldn't help but said hesitantly, what if the person you like doesn't like you? Nan 11 smiled lightly. A melon that is forced is not sweet. Only when two people are in love will there be a beautiful and sweet result. Xianyuanjia nodded and hummed slightly. Just like Fang Lanyi before, it was clear that Prince Ji and Chu Hongii loved each other, but she would be humiliating herself by forcing herself on someone who was not hers. The people present are all smart girls. Even if they long for pure love, they will not blindly do impulsive things. The unpredictability of the emperor's heart has been verified again here. No matter what Nan 11 said today is innocent. Whether they want to share happiness freely or beat something, they will think carefully about it, just because this is the holy will. Once anything is linked to the emperor, people will inevitably speculate several times. Nan 11 just pretended not to know about this. She is the empress now, no longer a simple little girl from an aristocratic family. Regardless of their temperament, these girls in front of them all represent their respective families. They are ministers in front of the emperor, but they may also become opponents of the royal family in the future. Loyal ministers and traitorous ministers are sometimes just in a thought. When aristocratic families prosper to a certain extent, they often lose their original intentions and develop disobedience. There are countless examples in history to verify that this is not unfounded. The ruler and his ministers may not necessarily be his own people. So she doesn't mind others speculating about the emperor, and she won't explain anything. Even though straightforward words can make people feel at ease, they are not necessary between monarchs and ministers. Only once in a while can one be in awe of the unfathomable. In her previous life, Danchu had personally experienced the consequences of the backlash from aristocratic families. The combined lethality of the aristocratic families was enough to shake the imperial power, so even if the regent had taken control of the overall situation, she would not let the aristocratic families grow without limit. Pick up the teacup and take a sip. Today, the queen invites the noble ladies to enjoy the flowers. After they return, they will tell their parents everything that happened in the palace and what the queen said. This is the instinct that noble ladies carefully cultivated by aristocratic families should have. Everything starts from the interests of the family. As for whether the heads of the major aristocratic families insist on consolidating their family status through marriage after hearing this, or whether they decide carefully on their daughter's marriage in order to reassure the queen, that is their own business. The lotus flowers all over the lake are in bloom. Nan 11 put down the teacup and turned to look at the lotus lake. This is the first time I have seen such a beautiful scenery. The ladies turned around and nodded. Yes, the lotus flowers in the palace are blooming the best. If you have time in the future, you can go into the palace and walk around. Nan 11 smiled lightly. It would be a pity if no one appreciates such a beautiful scenery. Everyone agreed, but they knew in their hearts that it was not so easy to enter the palace. The imperial garden belongs to the emperor. How can they enter and leave the palace and the imperial garden at will without the queen's summons? However, since Her Majesty the Queen said so, they just listened and agreed. They couldn't refute it, right? Miss Lu is good at painting. It is said that her painting skills are unmatched. Xian Yuanjia said softly, since Your Majesty thinks this lotus scene is beautiful, would you like to ask Miss Lu to paint a picture and let Your Majesty frame it and hang it in the palace? Nan 11 turned to look at Lu Fangfei with a smile on her face. Miss Lu is good at painting. Lu Fangfei nodded. I am not good at anything else. I like to paint any beautiful scenery I see. My painting skills are not superb, but they are barely acceptable. You are humble. Nan 11 smiled. I have heard of the name of the Lu family's talented woman before, and I have admired her for a long time. Prime Minister Lu hid you well, so I have the opportunity to see you today. He then ordered Yin Yu, prepare painting tools for Miss Lu. Yes. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 497. The Empress was enjoying flowers and chatting with the noble ladies in the palace, while Xian Yuanqi was walking with his little ancestor in the corridor of Prince Jing's mansion. The midwife said that the birth was imminent, and walking more would be good for the body, so that the birth would not be too painful, so Xian Yuanqi did nothing every day for the past 2 days, and only accompanied his wife for a walk, walking along the corridor of Hongchenziazu to the back garden, sitting under the pavilion in the back garden to drink a cup of tea or eat some fruit, and then walking back from the garden. Even if there were friends or relatives outside who invited him to drink, he would always refuse on the grounds that he had no time. The more times he did so, the more he confirmed the reputation of Prince Ji being afraid of his wife. However, as a perfect husband who treasures his wife and treats other people as grass, Xian Yuanqi did not care about these rumors at all. Whatever happened was still the same, and it was not affected at all. The weather in June was a bit hot. While the sun was not too strong in the morning, Xian Yuanqi accompanied Chu Hong'ai to walk slowly for about half an hour. The two of them walked and admired the scenery outside the hall. They chatted casually from time to time, but they didn't feel bored. Besides, with a loved one by your side, even if you stare at each other, it is much more pleasant than being with someone you don't like. As the sun gradually moved up, Xian Yuanqi suggested going back to Hongchenziazu to rest for a while, but Chu Hong'ai suddenly stopped, bent her body slightly, holding the railing with one hand and covering her abdomen with the other. "Wife, what's wrong?" Xian Yuanqi's face changed slightly, and he looked at her with concern. "Are you feeling uncomfortable?" Chu Hong'ai had a stomachache, but she had always been able to endure it. She frowned slightly and subconsciously had to endure this sudden pain. However, thinking of what Princess Jing had said before, stomachache might mean that she was about to give birth, so she turned to look at Xian Yuanqi. Hong'ai Xian Yuanqi saw that her face was not right, and hurriedly said, "Where do you feel uncomfortable?" Chu Hong'ai's eyebrows slightly twisted. "My stomach hurts a little dash." Stomachache. Before Chu Hong'ai finished speaking, Xian Yuanqi's face had changed suddenly. Without any pause, he directly picked her up and rushed to the backyard at a brisk pace. "Come here. Let the midwife get ready and invite the princess to come immediately. Her daughter-in-law is about to give birth." The palace was in chaos in an instant. The maids ran around to tell each other and hurried to invite the princess, not daring to delay for a moment. After a while, the sound of messy footsteps sounded, and a bunch of people came to the originally quiet Hongchenziazu in an instant. "Master, put the young lady on the bed. The princess is about to give birth. Prepare hot water. Everyone get out." One command and one action. The room soon became busy. The midwives were experienced and ordered the maids to prepare things in an orderly manner. There are 6 midwives, 2 less than when the queen gave birth. First, the number 6 has a good meaning, meaning smooth sailing, and second, the number cannot exceed the queen. Originally, Princess Jing thought that 3 or 4 would be enough, and the midwives only needed to be experienced, not many. But Xian Yuanqi insisted on preparing 6, and Princess Jing couldn't beat him, so she gave in. At the moment, the midwives were busy in the delivery room, and the maids listened to the instructions to prepare all kinds of items needed for delivery, and they were extremely busy going in and out. The nanny who came out of the inner room saw Xian Yuanqi standing aside and asked in surprise, "What is the prince doing standing here?" Xian Yuanqi was stunned. "My wife is giving birth dash. I know that the young lady is about to give birth." The nanny frowned. "The young lady is giving birth, why are you, a grown man, staying here?" When Princess Jing heard this, she turned around and said to Xian Yuanqi, "Get out." Xian Yuanqi's face changed slightly. "I'm just watching here." "What are you looking at? What's so good about it?" The nanny pushed him out and closed the door. "The prince has never seen a woman giving birth." With a bang, the door was closed in front of him, and Xian Yuanqi stared at the door blankly for a long time without reacting. Sorry, he really hasn't seen other women giving birth. But this nanny is too rude, he thought to himself. That's his wife, isn't it? My wife gave birth, but he was not allowed to be present. It's simply unreasonable. He turned around and paced anxiously, praying in his heart that Hong Ai was safe. The midwives in the delivery room were talking to each other, and Xian Yuanqi was upset. Suddenly, he heard the door open, and he subconsciously turned his head to look. Mother! Princess Jing came out and closed the door. How is Hong Ai? Xian Yuanqi asked anxiously. She didn't he? It's just the beginning. Why are you so anxious? Princess Jing frowned at him. Why don't you go out and sit for a while? What to sit for? Xian Yuanqi was in no mood to do that. How long will it take? Princess Jing shook her head. It's hard to say, maybe 1 or 2 hours, or a day and a night, and if it's slower, it might be 2 or 3 days. Xian Yuanqi's face changed. Hong Ai must be in pain. It hurts for sure, Princess Jing said, but all women have to go through this stage, there's nothing to worry about. Xian Yuanqi pursed his lips. Will there be any danger? Princess Jing was silent for a moment, thinking that many women in the folks lost their lives while giving birth, but looking at her son's anxious expression, she comforted him. The midwife is experienced, Hong Ai is also strong, and the doctors in the mansion are waiting for orders. It's okay. Xian Yuanqi was still worried and tense. He was not a simple and ignorant man, nor was he so noble that he knew nothing about women's affairs. When he was performing in the Great Zhou before, he heard too many news about women having difficult labors, and he was inevitably afraid at this time. You go and have a rest, Princess Jing advised. I'll stay here, and I'll send someone to notify you after Hong Ai gives birth. I won't leave. Xian Yuanqi shook his head without thinking. I want to stay here to watch Hong Ai. Princess Jing frowned subconsciously. Although she was a princess, she was also a noble lady from a noble family before she got married, but she had never seen a man outside to watch a woman giving birth. Whether it was ordinary people or dignitaries, almost everyone thought that it was natural for a woman to give birth. At most, someone would be sent to inform after the child was born. If it was a son, the master would naturally be happy. If it was a daughter, probably 9 out of 10 men would not even look at her, and would even be angry and disappointed, thinking that their wives were not good enough to give birth to a son. Who would really feel sorry for the hardship of a woman giving birth? She sighed softly. Then I'll go make some arrangements first. If anything happens here, send someone to let me know. Xian Yuanqi stared at the door and nodded mechanically. Yes. Princess Jing left first with her personal maid. Her daughter-in-law was giving birth, and she couldn't help much if she stayed here. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 498. The news of Chu Hong Ai's attack soon spread to the palace. Nan 11, who was watching Lu Fangfei painting, heard Yin Shuang's report and moved her eyebrows. What's the situation now? Princess Jing sent someone to inform Prince Jing and asked him to arrange a doctor from the imperial hospital to go to the palace just in case. Yin Shuang replied, General Chu just had an attack, and there is no movement for the time being. Nan 11 hummed and said nothing. Prince Jing is a prince of the royal family. It is normal to arrange a doctor from the imperial hospital to go there for fear of accidents during the birth of his daughter-in-law. However, the weather is so hot now, and Chu Hong Ai gave birth at this time. I'm afraid she will suffer during the confinement period. Nan 11 thought of the hot and bloody smell after childbirth, shook her head, secretly sighed that it was not easy for women, and ordered, when General Chu is done giving birth, you go and give her some ice cubes and put them in the outer room to cool her down, otherwise she will have a hard time sitting during the confinement period. Yin Shuang nodded. Yes. Ask the imperial hospital to pick some herbs suitable for pregnant women to nourish her body. Nan 11 reminded, be sure to pick carefully and don't make any mistakes. Yes. As a prince of the royal family, Prince Jing's family is distinguished and obviously has no shortage of ice cubes and herbs. However, the queen's reward represents her attitude towards General Chu. Even if it is just a cup of tea, it is a favor that many ministers only ask for. The noble ladies sat in the flower hall, quietly listening to the conversation between the queen and Yin Chuang, and their envy of Chu Hong'ai rose to a new level. Her Majesty even pays attention to when General Chu gives birth? Is this honor too much? Is she doing it for Prince Jing's sake, or does she simply want to win over Chu Hong'ai? After Lu Fangfei finished a painting, Nan 11 walked over to take a closer look, with a smile on her lips. It is indeed a painting made by a talented woman. The painting perfectly reproduces the beautiful scenery of the lotus in the lake. The brushwork is beautiful and the depiction is subtle. It vividly shows the flawless temperament of the lotus that is unstained by the mud. The crystal water droplets on the huge lotus leaves reflect the crystal luster in the sun, making people almost think that they are in the painting, enjoying the lotus scenery in the lake leisurely. Your Majesty's praise, I am ashamed to accept it. Nan 11 ordered, Yin Yu, take it and frame it after the ink is dry. Yes. This painting is a gift from Miss Lu to me. Nan 11 smiled lightly. As a return gift, I think I should also give Miss Lu something. As he said, he turned his eyes to Lu Fangfei. I wonder if Miss Lu wants anything. As soon as this was said, the other noble ladies were surprised at the same time. A painting can be exchanged for a return gift from Her Majesty the Queen? Lu Fangfei replied respectfully, I don't want anything in particular. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your grace. If you don't want anything, do you have any requests? Nan 11 said gently, if you do, you can also raise it. Under the premise of not violating moral laws, I can agree to one of your requests. Lu Fangfei is so lucky. The other noble ladies felt a little sour, especially Mo Lian, who couldn't help but look at Xian Yuanjie. She was wondering whether Xian Yuanjie's proposal for Lu Fangfei to paint in public was unintentional or planned in advance. The queen agreed to Lu Fangfei's request because of a painting? Such a good thing sounds unusual. Lu Fangfei is a talented woman who is proficient in piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and her temperament is also gentle and quiet. If you put aside her status, she actually has many similarities with Nan 11. They are both gentle and gentle noble ladies. And both of them are from the Xiongfu. The only difference is that Nan 11's prime minister father is unreliable, he can't even eat soft rice, and he has done all kinds of unkind things, while Lu Fangfei's father is an important official of the court, a man with calmness, moderation, wisdom, and foresight. Nan 11 had also learned about the Lu family before. Although Prime Minister Lu is the Prime Minister, the Lu family cannot squeeze into the list of the 4 major families in the imperial capital. The reason is that the Lu family has a weak bloodline and a small family. Prime Minister Lu is devoted to his career and doesn't like to make too many friends. Even the officials under him have always been fair to him, and rarely have close relationships with him. In addition, the Lu family has a shallow foundation. It was only the generation of Prime Minister Lu's grandfather that began to take root in the imperial city. The Lu family has a sense of crisis and is well aware of the hidden dangers of a prominent family, so 3 generations have been single line, and there is only one legitimate son in each generation. This line is special. Because Mrs. Lu really wanted a daughter, she got pregnant with Lu Fangfei. Of course, it was a blessing for Mrs. Lu to get what she wanted. If the second child is still a son, at most they will have 2 brothers, and it is impossible to strangle the child to death. Lu Fangfei has been spoiled since she was a child and has lived a smooth life. However, the Lu family has a good family tradition. They spoil but not spoil. The eldest son is handsome and gentle, and the daughter is well educated, kind, and generous. So Nan 11 thinks that it is okay for the Lu family to be more prominent. Your servant. Lu Fangfei was silent for a moment, and a little hesitation flashed across her face. Your servant does have something that I want to ask your majesty to agree to. Xian Yuanjie stared at the teacup on the table, frowning slightly, and remained silent. Tell me about it. Father mentioned my daughter's marriage a few days ago, and I said that my elder brother had not married yet, so I dared not get married before him. Lu Fangfei lowered her eyes. Father took the opportunity to scold my elder brother, saying that he was unfilial and did not want to start a family after he was over 20 years old, and asked him to get married this year. Men should get married when they are old enough, and women should get married when they are old enough. Nan 11 smiled lightly. It is normal for Lord Lu to worry about his son's marriage. Father has never paid much attention to family marriages, so as long as the girl has good character and a good family tradition, the rest is up to you, as long as you like it. Lu Fangfei continued, but after you said who he liked, father refused to agree. Oh, Nan 11 was surprised. Why is that? Lu Fangfei pursed her lips. Because this girl's family is prominent, father thinks it's not suitable. Family prominent? Nan 11's eyebrows moved slightly, and after careful thought, she understood what she meant. In the final analysis, Prime Minister Lu's non-objection was only that he did not object to his son marrying a girl with an ordinary family background. If the family is too prominent, especially to the extent that others also covet it, then whether it is out of mutual affection or any other reason, this marriage will undoubtedly attract attention. It's nothing for others to look at her sideways, but the emperor's sideways look means risks at any time and place. It is obvious that Prime Minister Lu's sense of crisis is deeply rooted and cannot be shaken. And who is the most coveted marriageable woman in the imperial capital recently? Nan 11 glanced at Xian Yuanxia, who was sitting silently at the table, and smiled faintly. Jia, do you have a lover you like? Xian Yuanxia came back to her senses, stood up and said, Your Majesty, I don't have one. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 499. Really, Nan 11 chuckled, if you have a lover you like in the future, you can tell me. Xian Yuanjia lowered his eyelids and responded respectfully, yes. Miss Lu, do you want me to propose marriage to your brother? Nan 11 turned to look at Lu Fangfei and asked lightly. Lu Fangfei nodded lightly, my daughter does not overestimate her own abilities. She only hopes that my brother will get what he wants. Nan 11 smiled faintly, there is no problem in proposing a marriage, but I have not yet met the Lu family's young master. I don't know what his character is like, and I don't know who the girl he likes is. It is not appropriate to rashly propose a marriage. Although outsiders say that Mr. Lu is gentle and elegant, Nan 11 has never met him, so it is difficult to make a judgment. Lu Fangfei pursed her lips slightly, lowered her eyebrows and said, Your Majesty is wise. I will go and find out more when I have time. Nan 11 said, please be patient. Yes. The scenery in the center of the lake is picturesque and the air is cool. Nan 11 chatted with them for a while, and after half an hour announced the end of the banquet. The ladies stood up, saluted, and sent the queen off respectfully. On the way back to Dajhan Palace in the royal chariot, Nan 11 said calmly, what is the name of the young master of the Lu family? Your Majesty, Mr. Lu's name is Lu Konglin, and Su, who was following the royal chariot, replied respectfully, last year, I was selected as the #1 scholar by the emperor in the imperial examination. Do you have a position in the court? And Su said, Master Lu likes to investigate cases, so the old lady arranged for him to serve in Dali Temple. Like investigating crimes. Nan 11 closed her eyes and thought deeply, and didn't ask any more questions. Returning to the Dajhan Palace, Nan 11 had just sat down on the couch when she heard Nanny Li say, Master, Miss Chia and Miss Lu want to see you. When Nan 11 heard this, she raised her eyebrows slightly, but she didn't feel surprised at all and said calmly, "Let them in." "Yes. Miss Jia and Miss Lu are here to meet the Holy Spirit together." Yunyu handed Nan 11 tea and seemed a little puzzled. "What are you planning?" Just after leaving the Imperial Garden, these two girls did not leave the palace, but followed them to the Taisho Palace. Nan 11 didn't say anything, just sipping her tea. Not long after, Lu Fangfei and Xian Yuanjia walked in together. When they entered the palace, they knelt down and saluted, "Your Majesty." "Stop being so polite," Nan 11 asked Yunyu to move tables and chairs for the two of them. "Sit down and talk if you have anything to say." Lu Fangfei and Xian Yuanjia did not stand up, their eyebrows were slightly lowered and their expressions were respectful. "My daughter is at fault." Xian Yuanjia held the cuffs of her skirt carefully and stared at the tiled floor of the palace. "My daughter has concealed something from your Majesty. Please punish me." Nan 11 looked at her with a calm expression on her face. "What did you hide from me?" Xian Yuanjia was silent for a moment and whispered, "My daughter has a lover of her choice." Nan 11 smiled lightly, not surprised at all, "Young master of the Lu family." Xian Yuanjia's face changed slightly, and she bit her lower lip gently, "Yes." After denying it in the Imperial Garden, she felt a little uneasy, and Nan 11's attitude made her even more unsure. So everyone else left the palace, but she couldn't even take a step forward as if her feet were filled with lead. The crime of deceiving the emperor was like a huge stone weighing on her heart. She was not sure whether Nan 11 could see that she was lying, but in the end she could not resist the growing uneasiness in her heart, so she decided to come over to plead guilty and take the initiative to confess the truth. "My daughter and Mr. Lu are in love with each other, but they have always been in love and polite, and have never done anything out of line," Xian Yuanjia said softly. "It's just that my daughter is a concubine in the family, and she can't decide on her own marriage. I didn't dare to mention this matter to my mother. Mr. Lu has always been opposed by the Prime Minister, so I have never revealed this matter in front of others." Nan 11 hummed, "So you are playing tricks in front of me." Xian Yuanjia's face turned pale and he almost fell to the ground. "I dare not, I beg your Majesty to forgive me." "Okay," Nan 11 sighed, "in the future, if you have anything to say in front of me, you can say it directly. There is no need to be roundabout and clever. I don't like this method." "Your Majesty, please forgive me." Lu Fangfei bowed and apologized. "This matter was my daughter's idea, and I acknowledge my guilt." Nan 11 looked at the two girls in front of her and said calmly, "Everyone, please get up. It won't be the same next time." Xian Yuanjia and Lu Fangfei did not expect to be exposed so easily, and they breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. After respectfully thanking them, they stood up, with a look of panic and guilt on their faces. Nan 11 pointed to the chair opposite, motioned for the two of them to sit down and said, "Brother has always liked Jia, but my father does not agree with this marriage." Lu Fangfei sat upright on the chair, folded her hands on her knees in a formal manner, and took the initiative to explain, "My father said years ago that the girl from Prince Jing's mansion, although she is a concubine, there is no legitimate daughter in Prince Jing's mansion, and the status of a concubine is not low. I don't know how many people are trying to get married to Prince Jing's mansion. The foundation of the Prime Minister's mansion is shallow and the residence is humble, which is not suitable for Prince Jing's mansion. So I didn't agree to my brother's request." Nan 11 smiled lightly. "The foundation is shallow and the residence is humble. They are just excuses, but what Prime Minister Lu said is true. Prince Jing's palace is powerful and the family is noble. I don't know how many people are trying to get married, especially after Nan 11 ascended the throne. Hong Ai was married to Qi Shizi, and the marriage between the two families already made them more prominent. When other aristocratic families became aware of the crisis, they naturally targeted Xian Yuanjia. However, there are many aristocratic families in Dongling. Whether it is the Mo family, the Su family, or the slightly weaker family mansions, Their influence in Dongling is not small, but the Lu family is different. Prime Minister Lu has always adhered to the principle of not being in the limelight. Of course, he would not compete with other noble families for the in-law of Prince Jing's mansion at this critical moment. The new emperor ascended the throne, and no one knew what her temperament was like. The more she was in the limelight at this time, the more likely she would attract the emperor's attention. The movements between the noble families would fall into the eyes of the new emperor, and this kind of attention did not mean luck. It was not the right time to join in the fun. Prime Minister Lu's considerations could not be said to be unwise. After all, everyone had their own ideas. Some powerful officials were eager to pursue greater power and higher status, while others were content with the status quo and only wished their families to be safe. So no matter whether his son really liked the girl from Prince Jing's mansion, at least in his opinion, this was definitely not the best time to discuss marriage, and Xian Yuanxia, as a girl, had no say. She was a concubine's daughter, and her marriage had to be decided by Princess Jing. Under the premise that Prime Minister Lu had not agreed, even if she really liked Mr. Lu, she would never rashly ask Princess Jing for help. But the situation was different recently. All the major families are thinking about marrying into the Jingwang mansion. In the past 2 days, the Jingwang mansion has had ladies come every day. If Chu Hong'ai was not about to give birth and made the Jingwang wife a little busy, I am afraid that Xian Yuanjia's marriage would have been put on the agenda long ago. Once the marriage is really confirmed, Xian Yuanjia will have no chance to fight for it, so he and Lu Fangfei used this method at the flower viewing banquet. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 500. But Xian Yuanjia is a smart and cautious girl after all. She couldn't bear the crime of deceiving the emperor, and Nan 11's reaction also made her feel uneasy. She always felt that His Majesty had already seen through her tricks. The uneasy feeling enveloped her heart, and finally she couldn't help but take the initiative. There was silence in the hall for a moment. Nan 11 said calmly, "Your marriage should be decided by Princess Jing. I am determined to grant you a marriage, but I cannot go beyond her. When your sister-in-law gives birth safely, I will take the time to talk to your mother and listen to her thoughts." Xian Yuanjia lowered his head. "Yes. You guys should go back first," Nan 11 said. "Hong Yi's attack occurred today, and it probably happened in the past 2 days. Princess Jing probably doesn't have time to worry about anything else for the time being. It doesn't matter if she puts it aside for a few days before the wedding." Xian Yuanjia nodded. "Thank you, Your Majesty the Queen." The two girls quickly excused themselves and left. As soon as they turned around and walked out of the Taisho Palace, they met the regent who had returned from the imperial study. Xian Yuanjia paused and saluted respectfully. "See the regent." Lu Fangfei raised her eyes and saw a slender and upright man in a black robe. His features were serious, and he was as handsome as a god. She couldn't help but feel slightly absent-minded. When she heard Xian Yuanjia paying homage, she came back to her senses and saluted accordingly. Rong Yu glanced at the two of them and said indifferently, "No courtesy." After the words fell, his feet did not stop and he stepped directly into the Taizhong Palace. Lu Fangfei turned to look at his back and whispered, "Is this the regent?" Yes. Xian Yuanjia nodded, glanced at her, and walked out. "Do you think the regent is good looking?" "Very nice." Lu Fangfei looked away and murmured to herself, "It's more than just good looking. Such a man of extraordinary magnanimity, with nobility and majesty all over his body, is as unattainable as a white crane in the clouds. No one will doubt that he is the reincarnation of a god. How can the word good-looking be used to describe him?" Lu Fangfei's heart palpitated, but she suppressed it forcefully, trying to brush away the unnecessary ripples. The Prince Regent is the husband of Her Majesty the Queen. They are a match made in heaven. No matter how good they are, no one can covet them. Even just thinking about it is disrespectful. Rong Yu stepped into the Dajhan palace and saw the woman he longed for at the first sight. The Prince Regent is back. Aunt Sue bowed respectfully and asked the tea maid to make tea, while the dining maid went to prepare lunch. All of a sudden the palace people started to move. Rong Yu couldn't see anyone else in his eyes. He reached Nan 11 in a few steps with his straight and slender legs. He lowered his head and kissed her on the forehead. "Did you miss me?" Nan 11 laughed. "We have only been apart for half a day, it's not like we haven't seen each other for half a year." Rong Yu frowned and looked at her dissatisfied. I miss you all the time," Nan 11 smiled, with a helpless and indulgent tone. "I haven't seen you for a whole long time, how could I not want to?" Rong Yu's eyebrows relaxed and the corners of her lips raised. "Even if it's perfunctory, I still like to hear it. If this happened to the emperor, I would definitely be the evil concubine that the ministers criticized with words and deeds that brought disaster to the country." Nan 11 sighed, "And you are the foolish emperor who was bewitched by beauty." Rong Yu picked her up, turned around and sat on the couch, pulled her into his arms, and said in a soft voice, "Have fun with them." Nan 11 said in a lazy voice, "It's okay." Rong Yu stared at her eyebrows, unhappy. "Not really," Nan 11 smiled. "What kind of man is Prime Minister Lu's son?" Rong Yu's face changed slightly. "Why are you asking him? Don't look like you're facing a formidable enemy." Nan 11 pinched his face and felt helpless for him. "I've never seen him. Is it possible that I should take him into the palace to be the emperor's husband?" Rong Yu pursed his lips slightly. "Don't care about other men." "I don't care about him." Rong Yu said, "It's not okay to be curious." Nan 11 was silent for a moment. "You're not done yet, are you?" Rong Yuba kissed her. "Jia likes him," Nan 11 said, briefly describing what happened in the imperial garden. "Prime Minister Lu was a little stubborn on this point, so Miss Lu and Jia co-acted in a play, and wanted to I give them marriage." When Rong Yu heard this, his expression was faint. "The concubine of Prince Jing's palace is quite courageous." "You're not too brave," Nan 11 smiled, "otherwise, I wouldn't have come over in such a hurry to apologize. Xian Yuanjia is a smart girl and kind-hearted." Although she did not do it properly in this matter, Nan 11 said that it was understandable. Everyone occasionally makes mistakes. Fortunately, she did not really have the intention to deceive the emperor. Thought. The little girl played a little trick for the sake of love and was able to realize the inappropriateness of her behavior in time. Overall, it was not a big mistake. The family has been a little restless these past 2 days, and Jia must be a little anxious. Nan 11 picked up the teacup and brought it to Rong Yu's mouth. "You are thirsty, drink tea." Rong Yu took a sip from her hand and said, "No matter what the reason is, it is wrong to lie to you." Nan 11 was silent for a moment, then raised her eyes to look at him. "Didn't you also cheat on me?" Rong Yu pursed her lips, as if she was a little sad. 11 always remembers my mistakes." "No." Nan 11 shook her head slowly, her voice was extremely gentle. "I am a prime minister with a heart that can support a boat. I have a broad mind and many adults. I will never hold grudges against others." Rong Yu buried his head on her shoulder and smiled sullenly. "Have you ever praised yourself so much?" "Can't." "Okay." Rong Yu laughed heartily. "My 11 is very broad-minded. The queen's heart can hold a boat. As a husband, I am lucky to meet 11 in 3 lifetimes, and I am lucky to be liked by 11 in 6 lifetimes." The palace servants standing in the outer hall waiting for the meal looked at each other and smiled secretly. Nanny Sue and Nanny Li, who were preparing lunch with people, seemed not to hear the queen and the regent's jokes. They were very calm. Only when they turned their heads occasionally, they could see the corners of their lips slightly raised. Yin Yu, who was standing aside, was obviously holding back her smile, and her pretty face was slightly red. The regent in front of outsiders and the regent in front of Her Majesty the Queen were 2 completely different people. Fortunately, Yin Yu and Yin Shuang had long been accustomed to their own prince's love for Nan 11, unlike the palace servants who were shocked and surprised at the beginning and now took it for granted. However, no matter how accustomed they were, sometimes it was still a little unbelievable. Nan 11 was calm about it. After all, there are many palace servants in Dajhan Palace, and Rong Yu's love-making style of acting like a spoiled child or a rogue from time to time has become the norm. It is impossible for him to drive the palace servants out every time he comes back, so just learn to be calm and composed. Chu Hong-I had a tantrum today. Nan 11 held her cheek and pondered, I wonder if it's a boy or a girl. Why, Rong Yu raised his eyebrows, 11er wants to have a closer relationship. I haven't thought about it. Nan 11 turned her head to look at him in surprise. Prince Jing's mansion is already prominent enough, even if a daughter is really born, it is not suitable for marriage.